Okay, so we've been on this chapter in the Rambam about the 3 types of Ra, and we've done the main parts, but there's still a lot left, and I kind of would like to finish it today. Okay, so we're going to read and discuss, but with the aim of trying to finish. Okay, because I want to move on to the purpose of the world, the universe, which is the next one.
Too.
Yeah. Okay. So a quick review of the 3 Ra's. So Ra number 1 is stuff that happens from the nature of physical matter: entropy, destruction, degradation, limitations of matter. And if you want to be physical and not physical at the same, and impervious to harm, too bad, so sad, right? And that's like in the traffic system. If you want all the benefits of the traffic lights, but you never want to get stuck at a red light, then too bad. That's not how systems work. Okay, then, then the Ram also said that the physical universe is the most perfect it can be. And even perfect systems have red light cases, right, where the particulars don't work out in your particular favor. Okay. Ra number 2, type of Ra people inflict upon each other, and Ram explained earlier that it originates in ignorance, and these are relatively uncommon in most cases, except in times and places of war. And why is this Ra? Why do we have to have this Ra? What makes this Ra necessary?
We have free will.
Because we have free will, right? And if God just turned off all people's desires to do bad things, that would be not free will. So you can ask, why did God create a creature with free will? But insofar as, just like you can ask, why did God create a physical universe? But like, insofar as we have free will, there are going to be people who use their free will for bad.
Right.
Okay. And third type of Ra is the Ra that people inflict on themselves through their own actions. And this is much more numerous than all the other types. Do you have any thing in your notes after this?
Us. We are the most perfectly created we can.
No? Okay. Okay, good. All right. So in the Rambam, I think we're up to this phrase or this part. I don't know if this is a new paragraph or not. Yeah, if you take out the Moreh 3:12.
This is after the 3rd.
Yeah.
Do you do those with the solar twofold? No.
No, it's right before that though, I think.
Just class of Ross originates in man's flaws.
Before that?
Yeah.
Oh, it's the last 4 words of the 3rd section.
Yeah.
Okay, good. All right, you got it? Everyone, tell me if anyone needs help finding it, then I can point.
Found it.
Okay, in reference to this kind of Ra, Solomon says, a man's foolishness corrupts his way, but his heart rages against Hashem. Yeah, so again, what's that Mishlaic mistake? Order.
Like you're saying, like what's the word? Like
I'm
now?
Yeah, because he's quoting a Mishlai passage,
He
right?
gets
So like
mad
what?
at Hashem, but it's his own because he has free will.
Sorry, just say it again.
He gets mad at Hashem that things didn't go like well for him, right?
Exactly, right. And whose fault is it really?
His.
His. So man's foolishness corrupts his own way, and then he blames Hashem. Right? Yeah. But again, that's like the student who doesn't study for the test and then blames the teacher, right? It's like, you know, you could have studied. That's why you got a bad grade.
Also, like this type of Ra is the only one that you have control over.
Right. That's a good point. Right. This is the only one that you have total control over. Right. You can take measures to counteract the first and the second, but you can't totally escape it. This you could totally escape. Yeah. In the following passage, he also explains that this kind of Ra is man's own work in Koheles. We're in a Shlomo role here. But see, this did I find: God has made man upright, but they have sought out many inventions. That's a bad translation. Many schemes, I guess, is better.
Yeah, ours says scheming calculation.
So maybe I just forgot to. Maybe I changed it when I'm always updating the translations, but I don't always update the PowerPoint. And these inventions bring the Ra'os upon him. The same subject is referred to in Iyov: for affliction does not emerge from the dust, nor does misery grow from the earth. These words are immediately followed by the explanation that man himself is the author of these class of Ra'os, for man is born to trouble. Okay, fine. Now, this is not in your text, but this is I said this verbally, but this is the Rabag's great mashal here. Thus he says, for anger kills the fool, inasmuch as he is constantly vexed. What does it mean to be vexed by something?
Ask Emily. It's her favorite word.
Emily? Okay, you lost your chance. Do you know what it means, vexed?
Yeah, like get angry about something.
Yeah, it's like a combination of like angry and frustrated.
Yeah.
You know. when in reality, he alone is the cause that prevents the frustration of his expectations because he did not use the proper methods in trying to achieve his goals. It is obvious that such a man is constantly vexed when he does not attain what he aimed at, and he therefore thinks that this is due to punishment from God. Now, this is the example, but it is also evident that such a thing cannot be classified as evil, just as you cannot call evil the failure of producing a ship by digging in the ground, since a ship cannot be produced through such an agency. So if you try to get a yacht by digging in your yard, then of course you're going to be unhappy. And if you blame God, then you're unhappy and you're stupid, right? Okay. Consequently, the foolish man whose heart persuades him to chase all kinds of imaginary fortunes is killed by jealousy, for his eye is not satisfied, and he remains always with that envy and pain. Moreover, on account of his great envy, he endeavors to acquire the things he desires by hasty methods, thus using improper means to achieve them. So the yellow part is the same point as the yacht, but he's saying not only do you get frustrated, this is not in your text, Leah, not only do you get frustrated by not getting what you want, but what other source of pain is there other than like the not getting the yacht?
Jealousy, like you want it.
Yeah, is the jealousy that's unsatisfied is another source of the pain, you know? And this is all in category number 3. And this is still not in your thing. And if it happens that a fool takes root and prospers in some things, meaning let's say he does like win a yacht in a lottery or something like that, you know, his downfall is sure to come suddenly. For I saw him, he's speaking in Iyov's perspective, I saw him in his fall, and I cursed his habitation because of the little that remained of his property, for the acquisition of which he strove. To such a man, nothing of value comes except by accident, and that which is by accident is insignificant. So not only does he usually not get what he wants because he uses the wrong means, and not only does he have lots of frustration and envy and jealousy, but when he gets it, what happens?
It's just like a random thing, and he won't continue to get that.
Yeah, it's random. He won't continue, and he'll lose it. He'll often lose it. And again, example with lottery. What happens to most lottery winners? Yeah, is they spend it and it goes away, or like they sometimes even get into debt, like which is insane. Like, you know,
tax evasion.
yeah, stuff like that, stupid stuff like that, or like they make a really, really bad investment. You know, same thing with a lot of I don't know if it's all the professional athletes, but I know that certain sports I think are known for people getting paid a lot, and then oh, I think football. I want to say football, right? Because football careers end much earlier, and like they spend all their money in crazy ways, and like and then they've debilitated themselves, and like they just have like the last, like from the age of like, I don't know, 35, I don't know how old, you know, football players are. They just spend the rest of their lives like in debt and not able to like work and like have injuries and stuff, and so it's just not good. Okay, back to the text. This class of wrongs originates in man's flaws, such as excessive desire for eating, drinking, and love, indulgence in these things in undue measure or in improper measure, or partaking of unhealthy food. This course brings diseases and afflictions upon body and soul alike. The sufferings of the body in consequence of these wrongs are well known. Okay, so let's take an example, right? So in America, what's the biggest, I guess, eating related problem that Americans have? Obesity, right? Obesity is the biggest problem in America. And obesity itself, like, what are examples of the types of rows in category 3 that come from obesity? Diabetes. And that's it.
High cholesterol.
No. Okay. High cholesterol, which tends to lead to heart disease. What do you say?
Shorter life.
Shorter life. Okay, right. And shorter life can lead to other problems. Like, let's say, for example, you are a parent who is, you know, in your 40s or 50s, and like you've got kids that you're still supporting, and like you got some sort of heart disease, and then like you have to like, you know, you can't work because you're incapacitated, and then now that creates problems for your family. Or just the shortness of life itself can bring bad things, like you don't get to like see your grandchildren or whatever, you know. What else can obesity do that is bad?
Make people bully you.
Make people what?
Bully.
Yeah, right. Is self-image problems either in your own eyes or in other people's eyes? What else?
Like health problems, you'll
Yeah.
like physically feel bad.
Yeah, is lack of energy and bad sleep and all this other stuff. So in other words, like this one thing of excessive, I'm not saying all obesity comes from excessive desire for food, but let's say like either eating too much or eating the wrong foods, like foods that are like what do they call empty calories, you know, that don't actually like provide you nutrition, or like fast food. That one trend can lead to many, many varieties of problems, and it all stems from that, from one root. Okay. All right. So now he says like this. Oh, oops, sorry, I didn't mean to go there. So he said, this course brings diseases upon the body and the soul alike. Sufferings of the body and consequences of these raws are well known, as we just said. Those of the soul are twofold. First, such raws of the soul are the necessary consequence of changes in the body, insofar as the soul is a force residing in the body. It has therefore been said that the properties of the soul depend on the condition of the body. Now, did anyone catch what he meant there?
Maybe it's saying like you could want to learn or do stuff, but you're in a hospital bed. You can't.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Exactly. Right. So your soul is your Self-Inflicted, right? Part of you that can think, and if your body is incapacitated, it's going to affect your ability to engage in thinking activities, either practically, like you said, an example of like, you're in the hospital, right? Or, there are diets that are healthier or more unhealthy for clarity of thought, for memory, for quickness of thought. I don't exactly know what they are, but like, because your Self-Inflicted functions through your brain, then like, let's say you eat a diet that leads to severe mood swings, or let's say you have a diet that leads to getting bad sleep, so you're not as alert. All this stuff can affect your mind.
Right.
Yeah. Secondly, the soul, when accustomed to superfluous things, what does superfluous mean? Extra. Acquires a strong habit of desiring things which are neither necessary for the preservation of the individual nor for that of the species. This desire is without limit, whilst things which are necessary are few in number and restricted within certain limits, but what is superfluous is without end. What does this remind you of? What, Savor?
Yes, sir, on Koheles.
Yeah, Koheles, right? Is that when you are desiring something without a limit, then like there's no way to be satisfied. Okay, and whereas if you're desiring something like, let's say if someone wants to be wealthy is an undefined thing. But let's say someone says, I want enough money to take care of my shelter, food, and like education. That's a quantifiable thing, and therefore you can actually like attain that because it has a limit.
Still Yitro, no?
Well, you can desire that for the sake of another Yisron, but I'm saying like in terms of like how much money you're going to need, there's a set amount, or there's a range, I should say. Whereas if you just say I want to be rich, that is an unlimited thing, because when you get money, you're going to feel like you need more money, or for example, so this is a good example. This one you'll remember, I think. You desire to have your vessels of silver, but golden vessels are still better. Others have vessels even of sapphire, or perhaps they can be made out of emerald or rubies, or any other substance that could be suggested. Okay, those who are ignorant and perverse in their thought are constantly in trouble and pain because they cannot get as much of superfluous things as a certain other person possesses. So this is the problem that plagues the rich, right? The rich, materialistic rich, is that they this guy gets a mansion, this guy wants a mansion that's twice as big. This person has like, I mean, you've probably seen, name crazy things that rich celebrities have bought that just make you say like, this is ridiculous. Like, why are you buying this? Like, I feel like I've seen
Like a
YouTube
head
videos.
covering that's made of diamonds completely.
There you go,
Like
right?
diamond shoes.
Yeah, right. And so then someone else will feel like they have to outdo that person, or the person themselves feels like they have to outdo themselves. It's just like this endless thing. There's always better or more stuff that you can want. And that is without end. Okay. Furthermore, they as a rule expose themselves to great dangers. For example, by sea voyage or service of kings, and all this for the purpose of obtaining that which is superfluous and not necessary. So let's update this, because I don't think our celebrities go on sea voyages. So what are things that either celebrities or rich people, what are dangers they expose themselves to because of their desire for more and better stuff?
Like vacations. If you vacation to a lot of places, there are specific diseases which are like in that.
Okay, so that's definitely a
priority.
possibility.
They also expose themselves to criticism.
Yeah, okay, good. I think that's the major thing. They expose themselves to criticism, right? So people who want to be in the public, not all celebrities want to be like in the public light, but let's say like the Kardashians, right? They're not trying to hide from the from the spotlight. So what happens as a result of being in the spotlight all the time? They get criticized, and then what does that do?
makes them depressed, and a lot of people overdose.
Yeah, it makes
stuff
them
like that.
good. It makes them not good that happens. It makes them depressed. The depression can either be bad in its own right or make them to turn to unhealthy coping mechanisms that can bring further harm. You know,
The
Einhara, right? The jealousy, people wanting to like find dirt on them. You know, publishing scandals about them, paparazzi, like all this other stuff. You know.
Also, certain celebrities, like, they have this desire, like, once you get something, like, you want more. That's basically what you were saying. But, like, people will, like, do these crazy, like, jump out of planes from, like, higher than anyone's ever been, just because they have the money to do so.
Yeah, either because they have the money to do so, or they want the thrill, or they want, you know,
They
and you're right, it's like stuff that most people can't do. But since celebrities can do it, then they can just live out their fantasies, and some fantasies are dumb and dangerous, you know. Another example is, so I just watched this documentary series came out I think last year called The Last Dance about Michael Jordan and the Chicago Bulls. I'm not a basketball person. It was a great documentary, and I grew up in the '90s, and like he was the biggest like celebrity ever, you know. But there's this great scene where he's in his hotel room just watching TV, and he's talking about how he's like, I can't go out anywhere. Like, he says, as soon as I leave the door, like then it's just tons of people and crowds and stuff. And like he had this pressure to be perfect because he was also a role model and to never lose. And it's just this tortured life that people envy. People want to be Michael Jordan, but like Michael Jordan doesn't want to be Michael Jordan. You know, it's a horrible thing. When they thus meet with the consequences of the course which they adopt, they complain of the decrees and judgments of God. Okay, again, they blame God. They begin to blame the time and wonder at the lack of justice in its changes, and that it has not enabled them to acquire great riches with which they could buy large quantities of wine. There's a great run-on sentence. That it has not enabled them to acquire great riches with which they could buy large quantities of wine for the purpose of making themselves drunk, and numerous concubines adorned with various kinds of ornaments of gold, embroidery, and jewels for the purpose of driving themselves to sexual indulgence beyond their capacities, as if the whole universe existed exclusively for the purpose of giving pleasure to these low people. Okay, and they'll just blame God. You know, I'm not happy. Why am I not happy? The error of the ignorant goes so far as to say that God's power is insufficient because he has given to this universe the properties which they imagine cause these great woes, and which do not help all raw-disposed people to obtain the raw which they seek, and to bring their evil souls to the aim of their desires, though these, as we have shown, are really without limit. The virtuous and wise, however, see and comprehend the wisdom of God displayed in the universe. Again, I think this is all familiar to us from Koheles. That's why I'm not dwelling on this. Okay, so now he's switching. The virtuous and wise, however, see and comprehend the wisdom of God displayed in the universe. All right, here we go. Thus, David said, all the ways of Hashem are kindness and truth to those who guard his covenant and his testimonies. For those who observe the nature of the universe and the commandments of the Torah and know their purpose, see clearly God's kindness and truth in everything. They seek, therefore, that which the Creator intended to be the aim of man, namely pursuit of knowledge. Forced by the claims of the body, they seek also that which is necessary for the preservation of the body, bread to eat and garment to clothe, and this is very little, but they seek nothing superfluous. With very slight exertion, man can obtain it as long as he is contented with that which is necessary. So, as opposed to the fools who seek excess, the Chachamim seek two things.
Just what is necessary.
What is necessary
in terms of physical
for the physical, and so that
they can spend as much energy as possible gaining knowledge.
exactly, so they can be involved in knowledge. Okay, and that's not a lot of stuff that you need for the physical. All the difficulties and troubles we meet in this respect are due. Oops. Is that what it says next, or did I mess up the slides? With very slight exertion, man can obtain it as long as he's contented with that which is necessary.
All the
Yeah.
difficulties, yeah.
Yeah, okay, good. All the difficulties and troubles we meet with us in this respect are due to the desire for superfluous things. When we seek what is unnecessary, when we seek unnecessary things, we have difficulty even in finding that which is necessary. For the more we desire to have that which is superfluous, the more we meet with difficulties. Our strength and possessions are spent in unnecessary things and are lacking when required for that which is necessary. So I want to stop and talk about this for 1 second. I know it's not Tish B'Av yet, but one of the problems living in Galus is there are certain things that are not necessary for us, but we feel are necessary. Like, I'll give one example. Like, having running water is not necessary, but if you lived in a house without running water, you would feel like it's one of your basic needs that has been taken away. You know, so it's hard. The fact that we live in a society that treats certain things, or like air conditioning, you know, like people for thousands of years have lived without air conditioning, and they didn't view it as necessary to have it. But if you had a house without air conditioning in New York, you're going to be suffering, you know? So there's only so much I feel like we can do to break free of the values and thresholds set by our society. Like if a person just attempted to live, can you imagine if you had a family that tried to live on just like bread and simple clothing? Like no one's going to be happy, you know? So like I just want to acknowledge like there are things that are strictly speaking necessary in terms of the design of the body. Then there are things that become psychologically necessary because that's the normal standard of living in your society, and it's hard. We can't do so much about that, you know.
So are you saying that in the nature of man, if we were to place someone as soon as they were born into a society where they just were given clothes and bread and whatever, then they wouldn't psychologically desire like more than that ever?
I'm saying that it's a good question. I'm saying that the desire for they might desire, but they wouldn't feel that it was necessary in the same way that we feel it's necessary.
They don't know that it's necessary.
Yeah, yeah. What is it, Rachel?
I was gonna say if they don't know about it, you know.
Yeah, it's not a natural desire that they're born with, and if they're unaware of it, then they don't know that they're supposed to want it. Like same thing, you know, what age do kids get smartphones these days?
Middle school.
Depends, but pretty young.
Yeah, pretty young, right? You know, and a kid will feel deprived by not having it. But you could easily imagine if you put a kid in a society that kids didn't have smartphones, like we grew
I
up
mean, I
in.
feel like that's like a farther thing. I'm saying like when you were talking about the running water thing,
Yeah.
and, like the air conditioning.
Yeah,
I feel like those are more like extreme of how far we've come. Where like those things we need to live.
yeah. There's an amusing example, which I think will answer your question. I saw a video. I remember some put together by some sketch comedy thing of time travel. You know, where like they have this time machine and they go back in time. It's like they go back to the Middle Ages, and they encounter someone and they're like, "Oh, you smell," you know, and oh, this smells nasty. So then they like go into a different time period in history and they meet someone. They're like, "Oh, it smells so nasty," and like every single time period they went to, it's just people who smell nasty, you know. And it was a thing where like only like the royalty for most of history like had like perfumes and stuff, but like the average person smelled like body odor and like worse stuff and didn't bathe very often, you know. And like so that's the thing where when you get a single whiff of someone's body odor, you're like, I gotta leave the room, you know. but it would not bother you if everyone had it and that was just how you grew up and that was just like, you know, how it was. Yeah, so I don't know what the lines are, like what the limit is, but yeah, you know, you wouldn't naturally desire to smell like perfumes and roses or whatever.
So it's a natural then. It's nurtural.
It's neutral, yeah.
No.
That should be a word, yeah. Yeah.
So that makes sense. There has to be a word for it. Nurtural.
Nature was in it. No.
Yeah, but she's trying to make it into an adjective.
Yeah. Well.
Yeah, it's good. Okay, so the summary of all this here is most of this raw comes about from people seeking superfluity, seeking things that are not necessary. Yeah, that's the wrong theory, which is again interesting because we could talk about what causes people to, or what's the most common source of self-inflicted raw. And I don't think everyone would say this from seeking excess things, but that's the wrong thesis.
It's pretty much like Savor Koheles.
Yeah,
Like,
it is. It really is.
Is not doing that.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. It's interesting because he's not putting it in Koheles terms, but it really is. You're right. It's like it lines up very clearly with Koheles. Okay. Again, sorry we're rushing. I really just do want to finish this today. All right. Now he switches to a different point. Observe how nature proves the correctness of this assertion. This is a cool point. The more necessary a thing is for living beings, the more easily it is found and the cheaper it is. The less necessary it is, the rarer and dearer it is. For example, air, water, and food are necessary to man. Air is the most necessary, for if man is without air for a short time, he dies, whilst he can be without water for a day or two. Air is also undoubtedly found more easily and cheaper than water. Anyone disagree? No. Water is more necessary than food. For some people can be 4 or 5 days without food, provided they have water. Water also exists in every country in larger quantities than food and is also cheaper. The same proportion can be noticed in the different kinds of food. That which is more necessary in a certain place exists there in larger quantities and is cheaper than that which is less necessary. No intelligent person, I think, considers musk, amber, rubies, and emerald as very necessary for man except as medicines, and they, as well as other like substances, can be replaced for this purpose by herbs and minerals. This shows the kindness of God to his creatures, even to us weak beings. His righteousness and justice as regards all animals are well known. For in the transient world, there is among the various kinds of animals no individual being distinguished from the rest of the same species by a peculiar property or an additional limb. On the contrary, all physical, psychical, and vital forces and organs that are possessed by one individual are found also in the other individuals. If anyone is somehow different, it is by accident, in consequence of some exception, and not by a natural property. It is also a rare occurrence. There is no difference between individuals of a species in the due course of nature. The difference originates in the various dispositions of their substances. This is the necessary consequence of the nature of the substance of that species. The nature of the species is not more favorable to one individual than to the other. It is no wrong or injustice that one has many bags of finest myrrh. You know what myrrh is? Spice. Yeah, it's like a fragrant spice. And garments embroidered with gold, while another has not those things, which are not necessary for our maintenance. He who has them has not thereby obtained control over anything that could be an essential addition to his nature, but has only obtained something illusory or deceptive. The other, who does not possess that which is not wanted for his maintenance, does not miss anything indispensable. Whoever took more had nothing extra, and whoever took less was not lacking. Everyone according to what he eats had they gathered. Do you know what that's a reference to?
Man.
The man, yeah. This is the rule at all times and in all places. No notice should be taken of exceptional cases, as we have explained. Almost done, I think, right? In these two ways, you will see the mercy of God towards his creatures and how he has provided that which is required in proper proportions and treated all individual beings of the same species with perfect equality. In accordance with this correct reflection, the chief of the wise men says, I've never heard of Moshe referred to as the chief of the wise men, but I'm not going to disagree. All his ways are justice. And David likewise says, all the ways of Hashem are kindness and truth. And he also explicitly says Hashem is good to all. His mercies are on all his works. For it is an act of great and perfect goodness that he gave us existence, and the creation of the controlling faculty in animals is a proof of his mercy towards them, as has been shown by us. So if you had to summarize that whole passage that the Rambam is making about God and the universe and goods, what would you say?
People are constantly looking to find like the fault in like God's world, but really he's pointing out how kind he was in creating it and how perfect every single biological system is.
Good. Well said. Anyone want to add anything? I think that's good, but
Like the things that we need are necessary, that we have. Like Hashem created the world with the things that we need.
yeah.
The things we don't, we may not have, but it's just our own like idea of them that makes it seem like a bad task.
Okay, good. So that's the missing piece. So the world is designed in a manner which lends itself to all creatures getting what they need. People get into trouble by seeking what they don't need, or seeking what they need in unintelligent ways. Oh, sorry, hold on. I meant to add to that. Hold on. One more point, which is God provided the world with necessary things in proportion to how necessary they are, and the rare things are not necessary, right? He's saying that. So that's like a different idea of hold on, let me just put this on the bigger screen here. That's like related to my understanding of is that it doesn't mean that God satisfies every living creature. Like, it doesn't mean everyone gets what they want. It means he created the world in such a way where anything that is necessary for satisfaction is there in abundant supply, and is out there for people to get it.
But at the same time, there is an idea of natural selection. Like even not in humans, who you could say like that's just because humans are bad, but like there isn't enough for everyone.
So let's take an example. What's an example of something that there's not enough for everyone?
Working eyes.
Say again?
Working eyes.
Working eyes. So he did say that you will occasionally get someone whose eyes don't work, but that's due to category 1, right? Where like, a mutation or like some, accident.
So I don't get what I was saying.
Like let's say with animals, like let's
Yeah.
say there's like a jungle of monkeys, and monkeys only could eat bananas, and there's only a certain amount of bananas, and it's not enough for the monkeys.
But so I think that that's not true, though. I think that
There's always enough.
meaning for a particular monkey, there might not be enough, but the way that ecosystems work in general is that the ecosystem itself is balanced so that all the species get what they need, and the species continues to survive. The species, yeah. And that's why we say, that's what we mean when we say that there's no hashgacha pratis on animals, which is that God does not care about the individual animal, he cares about the species.
And same for humans. Well,
humans,
besides
there
the-
is hashkafa pratis,
Right.
and he does care about the individual, but only insofar as the individual is close to Hashem. You know,
Right.
Yeah.
So this is talking about like besides hashgacha, like just for
this time, yeah,
to
the
survive,
design of the world as a whole, yeah, and all the species get what they need, and then the only reason why a species might not get what it needs is because of human beings,
Right.
right? Because human beings can interfere with the
And
ecosystems.
nature.
No, nature doesn't destroy its own ecosystems. I mean, there are cases where like a natural disaster will happen.
Yeah.
That I mean, okay, I only think of two times when these are not the only two cases. Remember when we were going through the history of the timeline of the Earth? There was one time where like 97% of all species died.
Was that the meteorite or was that?
I forgot what it was that happened. So like most things that happen in nature are not like that. You'll have like a forest fire or a storm or something like that. It will not tend to wipe out species.
Mhm.
You know, it'll wipe out particular groups of animals, but
Okay.
not the entire species. Man is like the one that's responsible for, in most cases, for species going extinct. I think the exceptions are when you have like an era changing thing, like the death of all the dinosaurs or the death, yeah. I was gonna say, I thought you were going in a different direction, which is what direction I think you were going in? Let's say like food, right? So the Ram said that there's enough food for everyone, but there are places where people are starving.
That's
Right.
because of humans.
That's because of humans, right? In other words, really, we do have enough food for everyone. It's because of category number 2 that people are not providing food for those places that are starving, or the reason why those places are starving is because the leaders or people who are in charge did not prioritize taking care of basic needs and instead prioritize like power or money or something else like that. Yeah. Okay, that's the end of your packet, right?
Mhm.
Okay, good. So this is a good. We have 5 minutes left of class. Let's. I didn't print out the next one yet, but tomorrow we can start on the purpose of the universe thing.
Okay.
Question and answer for 5 minutes.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I was noticing this a lot. Like now that like Koheles and everything, and I notice like my own yesterons, I notice other people's too. And I don't know, like it like bothers me that I do that because I feel so judgmental. So like, what do I do to?
That's a good question.
Yeah, true.
So when you notice other people, not just Koheles runs, but when you notice other people's mistakes, when you notice other people like, other like being, influenced by like certain emotional factors. So I think the first thing to do to combat the feeling of judgmentalness is to recognize, number one, that I do the same thing, maybe not in this way, but I do the same thing in my own ways. Number two, to realize how if you hadn't learned certain ideas, or you hadn't been Jewish, or you hadn't like been exposed to certain things when you were exposed to them, you would be just the same as they are, And if you realize these things, then it makes you, if anything, feel sad or empathize with the situation that they're in. Can you give me an example, or you don't have to? You can make up one, or you can give me a real example. Just I want an example to work with here.
Someone who spends so much money on makeup.
Okay, right. Someone spends so much money on makeup, right? So like when you realize how grateful you should be that you were exposed to a different value system that values something other than physical appearance or other people's opinions of you, and it's sad that this person was not raised that way or was not exposed to that, and like if anything like that should be something to make you feel sorry for them, well, let's say like when I see someone like lose their temper in a public setting, like someone like yelling at the cashier, it's like first of all, there are times when I get mad and lose my temper, but it's sad to see someone who's so in the grips of their emotions that they would like yell at another human being in an embarrassing way when and not even be able to like think outside of their like their bubble,
But also, I think that you shouldn't be like so empathetic to the point where you're like, oh, like it's fine to surround myself with someone whose value system is this.
Right. You can't let it harm you. A third thing you do also is, what can I learn from this observation? And then that takes it out of the personal judgmental and puts it into the like bad word to use, clinical. Where like, what exactly is this, what mistake is this person making that I can learn from and help my own behaviors? Now you're kind of like learning from them instead of just letting that judgment, sit there and make you feel superior.
I feel like putting in a sad framework, it may like take off the superiority aspect, but it also puts it in a negative thing.
But it is negative. It is sad, and I think it's better negative than egotistical. Of like I feel sorry that this person is in the state of lack. I mean, if it's someone who you're actually like close to, I think it could actually help your interactions with that person and be more empathetic and merciful and like understanding and patient with such a person. But yeah. But I was kind of thinking when you asked the question of strangers. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, let's stop for today. All right.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
Thank you.